don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In the town of Geraldine, Alabama, your source for news and entertainment. You can find us on television two different ways as well. Local TV, you can find us on channel 182 on Charter Communications. Worldwide, you can find us on Abundant TV, and that's found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. All you need is one of those little sticks. Put it on the back of your television set and you'll be able to find us. So that's pretty cool. You can also find us on the radio. Yeah, sometimes I forget to mention that, AP. You can find us on the radio, and you can go to the website, and that's icradio.media. You can download the apps and listen that way, and you're really going to want to do this because of an upcoming show with AP Steadham. We're going to be talking about that in just a few minutes. So he needs no introduction. This is AP Steadham. He is a sports, he has his own talk show, I think a couple talk shows, and also he's just a sports analyst, and he knows it all. Hey, AP, how are you doing?
Hey, Donna, thank you so much for having me on the show. Good to see you today.
Well, it's good to see you too. Wow, we're beginning to really ramp up now. It's just right around the corner.
Donna, you can feel it in the air. People are getting excited. I mean, they've had all the media days for the various conferences around the country, and there's been a lot of been some movement. Some of these conferences, they're switching conferences, down the road. So that's a little bit of upsetting to the fans, because they're going to lose some of their traditions of rivalries and games and places they used to visit and have a lot of fun. So college football, change is the operative word, Donna, and it's all due to the money.
Yeah, I almost say so. But that sometimes we hear the word change, it freaks us out. Yeah. But I mean, if you can overcome the COVID pandemic, you can overcome anything else. That's the way I look at it.
Right. I think over time that will become the norm for people. I mean, just to give you the examples, USC and UCLA are located in Los Angeles. They're going to be moving to the Big Ten, which is normally a Midwest conference, but they incorporated Maryland and Rutgers on the East Coast. So now that conference is going to run from Los Angeles to New York, 4 time zones. And it's going to be worth a lot of money. So that was the reason that UCLA and USC moved. And of course, that upset some people in California. UCLA is part of the University of California system, Donna. And I think the governor was surprised. He didn't know. They didn't tell him. So I wouldn't be so bold as to make a move without telling the governor, because he's the one I think leads the board of trustees, probably. I mean, are involved in that administration in some form or fashion. But that's what happened. These presidents, they make these alliances, and the next day the alliance is over. It's short-lived, and their word doesn't amount to much. It's follow the money. Okay, my word is attached to the money. The highest bidder always wins. In these situations, kind of through the years, that's what I've seen, and I believe that's going to continue. The Southeastern Conference, they will have Oklahoma and Texas 2025, unless they both buy out their contracts with the Big 12. So, but I think the SEC is in good stead. They're one of the most powerful conferences in college football, besides the Big 10, I would say. The other conferences, they're at the beck and call of the SEC and the Big 10. That's the way I see it right now, Donna. Those are the two, the kings of college football. If you could have two kings, two countries, it's the Big 10 and the SEC.
I see that, and I can see why the SEC would be. It's kind of neat that that's happening, and I'm kind of glad. But you're right. I mean, politics is in everything, so that's just what it is.
Exactly. I'll give you an example, Donna, for people who had followed college football for a while. Years ago, when they were forming the Big 12 and the Southwest Conference had blown up, that was Texas and Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU, SMU. Well, the decision was they were trying to figure out if Texas would take Baylor into the Big 12. Well, the governor of Texas was Ann Richards at the time. She was a Baylor graduate. So that move was made because she said, look, if I'm going to approve this for the University of Texas, Baylor better be in the decision as well. So if you don't think politics plays a part in many facets in our life, you're naive.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What are some more changes that are happening? And why does it seem like all the changes are happening in a snowball effect? It's like all you can take.
Right. I think, Donna, it's similar to an avalanche. When you see these stories in a movie, let's say, and you see the snow falling a little bit at a time, and then all of a sudden the whole mountain comes down. Well, I think that's what has happened in college football. The athletes have been wanting to be paid for more than 50 years, Donna, and so it finally came to a climactic ending here with the transfer rule, where they can have that one-time exception to go to any school. Then you have the name, image, and likeness, and it's been on the cusp. It's been in the works for many, many years. But with all this money involved, when you have contracts and schools making per school, let's say 50 million, 100 million, whatever the number is, it's too big for me to comprehend. And the players are not having a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
It's too much. You can't fool everybody forever. When there's that much money involved in saying, well, we can't pay the players because there's amateurism and there's not enough to pay the players, but football pays for everything, Don. Men's basketball pays for some, but those are the two sports that generate the revenue. Men's golf, women's tennis, the track and field, the rowing team, the softball team, the baseball team, that's all predicated on football making money. I was watching an interesting story yesterday, Don. It was about Title IX 50 years ago. I think it's 50 or 51 years ago. Richard Nixon at the time, he was going to sign that legislation. I believe he had no idea that it would foster all these women competing in sports and the national championships and the sellout crowds and, for, let's say, gymnastics and some of the women's basketball teams and softball. But years ago, down the football coaches, they were right at the forefront. They said, you're going to destroy athletics if you have women on scholarships. We're going to change it. We're going to lose football. And they even had a senator from Texas trying to legislate an amendment to exclude football. Now, that's how serious it was. I mean, they were able to get to the politicians in Washington to have them enact their legislation, but the women were organized 50 years ago, Donna, and they defeated that legislation. And so you have 50 years of women having sports at universities and college around this country. Well, it's the same type of thing happening now. People are saying you're going to destroy the sport. You're going to pay the players. I think people adapt, Donna.
I think they do too.
It evolves. Those who can manage the situation, as you said, if you can accept some things in life, Donna, as you said, accept the change and move forward and say, okay, what is our plan? Okay, we can't worry about the other people feeling that the world is crumbling. We're going to compete in this environment. So it just kind of reinforced my position that 50 years ago, a good thing happened in this country. They included women to play sports. And look how many millions of people have enjoyed watching women compete in athletics at the collegiate level. So I think,
totally agree with that.
I think the same thing now. You hear people grumbling, I'm not going to watch college football. Donna, what else are they going to watch? I mean, everything else is professional. So are you telling me you've been watching football for 40 years, you're going to quit watching? I don't think so. I mean, you can make all, you huff and puff and blow the house down, but I think you're just blowing strong, and you don't have much behind it. I just think you're fooling yourself, because you're going to watch your college football team and other teams as well, because it's too much fun.
Let's go to the analogy of New York. Think about New York 150 years ago. What was it? I mean, think about, okay, somebody had to be paid to pick up horse poop because we had horses. And think about the person who said, New York's going to go down the tubes now because we're going to eliminate that. These crazy cars and trucks are coming in. Automation.
Yeah, I think the subway started in 1880s, 1890s. I think that's when the subway started. I think. But so imagine that you're telling people, we want you to be transported underground, and they're thinking, no way am I going underground. It might crumble above me. So, but I just think Donna, we're going to watch our college teams. We're going to accept the fact that these players are being paid. Matter of fact, some businesses, they're going to be involved in paying the players who normally are, supporters of the team, alumni, fans. They're going to get involved in paying these players. So I think that hot air will blow for a while and it'll cool off.
I think so too. I do too. But I've always wondered why they were not being paid. I mean, think about that. Because I mean, if you got pros being paid and you got to run it like a business, I mean, everything needs to be run like a business.
Right.
Think about this. So, I mean, there you go. You're not paying them. They're having to pay for college. Some of them get scholarships, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You got a big load on you if you're going to college and you're playing football college. That's a load.
Right.
It's a load.
Right. It really kind of snowballed down because they had the total cost of attendance, which is about 5-6 years ago, where they're paying every collegiate athlete the money that they used to pay. Let's say you had an engineering student, you're trying to entice them to university. That student, you could give the total cost of attendance, which ranges anywhere from a couple $1,000 to maybe $79,000 to various schools. That's something that a school presents to the Department of Education down. It has nothing to do with athletics. And this has been going on for years. So really the athlete did not have the best deal on campus because they were receiving the Pell Grant, which is I think in the neighborhood of maximum $5,500. But now they're receiving the Pell Grant if you're eligible. You get the total cost of attendance. You get this other type of scholarship. I can't remember the name at the moment. Plus you're having the NIL. So now it's wide open down. It's a free market for you as an athlete. You just have to make a deal that's acceptable to the university. I think they have to sign off on the name, image, likeness deal. There's a few exclusions. It's different in each state and school. So I'm not, I don't know all of those. But so the student athlete now, you can be proactive. You can have an agent. You can have representation to help you understand these deals and get the most money. And Don, if you could pay a coach $10 million, which there's some coaches in America, not a lot, but a few making $10 million, the players are saying, you're telling me you don't have any money, you're paying our coach $10 million. I think there's a little bit of money available for us.
I think so too. And then think about this when they're injured out on the field. And I mean, the career is just ruined. They'll never make pro in a lot of cases. So, I mean, I'm for it. I say do it.
Yeah, Donna, everything that the athlete has at their disposal right now, somebody had to fight for them. And it just didn't happen out of benevolence by the universities and the colleges. There were circumstances that came to light, and then there was pressures that were put on the universities and colleges. I mean, health insurance, that's one of them. I mean, I don't know how many years ago that happened, but now they get taken care of mostly by the schools and the colleges. I don't know all the particulars, but that just didn't happen now. I mean, there was pressure. And then once one school agrees to it, Donna, if you're at a school and they don't have the health insurance years ago, let's say, the other school will have a recruiting advantage. So everybody else has to fall in line, whether they would like it or not. So that's the way things happen. Maybe one school says, this is an advantage for us. Let's be the first. And we'll get a few players out of this before everybody else jumps on board. But,
because the first one is the one who's going to really rule. I mean, that's just.
That's right. That's right. You're on the cutting edge. You're going to have all the advantages, and the people are going to flock to your school.
But AP, one more thing needs to happen, though. I think what helped women was the Helen Reddy. Remember the Helen Reddy song, "I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar"?
Yeah.
That song was popular during that time you were talking about.
Yes, it was.
So somebody needs to write a song for the football players. If you'll do that, it'll happen quicker.
Probably so. But I'm really happy that women compete in athletics. I've enjoyed it through the years, and but I think people forget that their mothers or grandmothers, they didn't have a team possibly. I mean, I hope they don't take it for granted. That's all.
Yeah, me too. But women kickers have been around for a long time, and I'd like to see some women kickers out there on that. Rah-rah cheerleading is fine. But I like the athletics of football.
I'd like to see any woman that can kick be a field goal kicker because Donna, they could win a game. They
Uh-huh.
could win a football game. Uh, I think the one thing about the kicker, I guess it was from Vanderbilt, they made a big fuss over her because I guess she was the first one in a Power Five school. But I didn't care for that notoriety because there was other women, as you say, way before her on the collegiate level. And I don't see the needed to make the distinction that, oh, she's from a Power Five school. That's like very dismissive of all the other schools.
Prior to,
Yeah,
I mean, prior
I
to you
didn't,
dismissing those.
yeah, I didn't care for that time because you're telling me that the person, and I think they had one was at New Mexico and some other schools that were not Power Five. I maybe have to double check that, but I mean that was a big feat for her to kick for, let's say, University of New Mexico. It's no bigger than the woman who kicked for Vanderbilt, in my opinion. It's on the collegiate level, Division One.
Uh-huh.
There's no distinction between five. Do you think a quarterback that plays at Houston is any less than a quarterback that plays at let's say South Carolina? I mean, you're on the Division One level. You play each other,
Mhm.
okay? You play each other in bowl games.
Mhm.
So why should I say, well, oh, this is the first quarterback to throw for 2,000 yards at University of Houston, and then somebody does it at South Carolina, let's say, and oh, it's the first person in Power Five. They don't make Donna. They don't make that distinction, Donna. There's no distinction of passing records or rushing records on the Division One level. It's you have the Division One record. They don't say, well, he was at Central Florida and threw for 5,000 yards. Oh, well, he was at let's say Texas and threw for 5,000 yards. No, you have the Division One record. So that's why I'm applauding the woman from Vanderbilt who was the kicker, but they made too much of the fact that she was kicking for a Power Five school. I didn't agree with that at all because I didn't like the fact that they just relegated to the other people before them as, oh, that's nothing.
Uh-huh. And I want to say this, and I'm probably the only woman who's ever going to say this, but I also do not think the woman should get the position just because she's a woman. I
Oh no,
really think it needs to be competition. She really needs to outdo the guys.
oh no. I mean, I hear people all the time say I got to work twice as hard or whatever. My feeling down it is if you're on the field and you kick a 40-yard field goal 10 times out of 10, and the man kicks it 7 out of 10, which one do you think the coach is going to select?
I'm going to get the woman.
Obviously, they competed and won it fair and square. It has
That's
nothing
my
to do.
point.
Yeah,
Competition.
that's
But
right.
now but if it's reversed and she does say 5 out of 10, he does 9 out of 10, he needs to be the one.
no question. I mean, his livelihood depends on the person making the field goal. That's how he feeds his family. In this case, it's a man who's the head coach of a college football team. But my feeling is, Donna, that there's standards that are set, and if you come into a situation and you're not prepared, you're going to be called out. You're going to be called out, Donna, whether you're a man or a woman. Now, if there's some men that are, and I always tell people this, I tell women in sports and journalism, I said, if there's some man who makes some snide remark, they're just ill mannered. But it has nothing to do with you being a woman in the field of sports reporting, because women have been doing it now for 50 years now. You're not new to the field being a woman in sports. It's been happening for 50 years. So that adage of, well, I'm a woman, I got to work, I don't buy it. I think it's a non-issue at this point. 50 years, that's a long time to be in this field. Now, like I said, if you were mistreated by a man, that's their issue personally. It has nothing to do with you being in the field of sports reporting or sports media or any other field, in my opinion. I don't think. Now, if there's somebody who just started up in the field, maybe that's slightly different, but still, in this day and age where women are accepted to do many, many things, if some man gives you a bad time, that's on them.
Yeah.
That's on them. How
Well,
they
that's
were.
just total ignorance that way. It
Total,
really
that's
is.
right. That's right.
And it
So
spills over both ways.
right. I'm all for the best person. That's why I always say best person. I don't say best man, but best person.
Well, somebody gave me a coffee mug. I was in corporate GTE, and so for a gift, this person gives me a coffee mug, and it said let's say the ladder to success is harder to climb when you wear high heels. So, and I totally got that. But then again, I kind of thought, no, it's not really harder for me. It really wasn't, because I just get what you do is you just jump over the hurdles of ignorance. You just jump over it and just show
Yeah, you have. Yeah, that's right. I think that's a good point you made. That you have to jump over, because I think one of the most difficult things I've learned down in life, it is so hard to overcome ignorance. People are brainwashed,
them.
and even if you show them,
Uh-huh.
they'll have an opinion that it's against their own interest.
Mhm.
And so, like you said, I think you have to hurdle the ignorance if you can, if that's a possibility. So, but there is, we all know at the glass ceiling, we all know that men are in power in most situations. But if you have an inclusion over time, you're hoping that the woman has a chance to show her abilities, and the other men, if they were raised by some women that were successful as well, then those men will say, well, when we're picking the right person, we're going to include everybody in this room. And it just so happened the woman was the best. But I would say that there's still some glass ceilings, Donna, to be taken care of, I think.
Well, one of the glass ceilings, and I know this because I had a position once with a company, and it took me to New York several times.
Yes.
And so because I was from the South, people
Yes.
perceived, I guess, barefoot and pregnant, and your
Yeah.
husband walking
Yes.
all over you.
Right.
So I just told folks, I said, look, I just want to make this clear. We were in a board meeting, and I said, let's just make this totally clear. I'm from Alabama, and I've heard some of the snide remarks. And I said, let
Yes.
me tell you this. I said, my mother, both my grandmothers, believe me, were not downtrodden. They spoke their piece. They said whatever they wanted to say.
Yes.
So, and there may be bits and pieces of that in the South. I said, but where I came from with my family, that was not it. You were told
Right.
the best you could be by my grandfathers and my father, by the way.
Good for you. Good for you. You spoke up, because there is that perception in different parts of the country. But, Donna, I've had the pleasure of traveling from coast to coast, and you kind of do not worry about those comments, because your actions will speak so loud that those comments are muffled after a while, because they're going to see this Donna from Alabama. I may have thought something about her and had this perception, but it's not true. So you just have to, you don't get caught in that mud hole, going back and forth. And you just let them make those comments, and you act accordingly. I think, and it all works out in your favor in the end. That's what I've always tried to do, Donna. Oh yeah, I've heard comments different places from time to time, but that's what they're looking for. They're looking to get a rise out of it, more than likely.
The best thing to do is just smile at them and just keep doing your thing.
Right,
And
that's
don't
right.
let it stop you. Just keep going. And after a while, they're kind of like, what?
Right. Think about it, Donna. Here you are from Alabama. You're in New York. How did you get there? It wasn't by paying attention. Yeah. It wasn't by paying attention to anybody who thought you couldn't succeed. Right. Yeah. So that's what it is. But anyway, getting back to this, a little bit of college football, Donna. I'm getting excited about the season. A lot of times, Donna, what happened is you look at the schedule of a team, and maybe one or two games they're playing at home, and I believe that helps them. I believe that's a slight advantage, and that'll work out on the score. For instance, I'll give you an example. Auburn, I got the schedule. The first 5 games, Donna, they are playing at home. Okay, and it's 3 SEC games. They start off the year with Mercer, and then they play San Jose State, and then that third game we've been talking about, and we will discuss it continually, is Penn State comes to Auburn for the very first time. That's exciting. It's the big game of the day. It's the 2:30 game on CBS national television, and so that could be a pendulum swinger for Auburn's season if they can win that ball game. Last year it was close up at Penn State. It was a night game, national televised. I think the score was 28-20, I believe it was, done. And they had a chance there in the fourth quarter to score a touchdown. They just missed. But then the next game is Missouri at home. And then the following week, the 5th game is LSU at home. So now I think Auburn has a good chance to beat Missouri, and I think they'll beat Mercer and San Jose State. Penn State is kind of a toss-up at this point. And then LSU comes to town with a brand new coach, Brian Kelly. But the mere fact that they're going to be playing 5 games at home to get comfortable. Auburn might have a new quarterback. They got some young players coming on board, some wide receiver, defensive players. They got 2 new coordinators. Auburn, they were picked to finish near the bottom, if not the bottom in the SEC West. But like I said, they have 5 games at home. Mm-hmm. So that's a tremendous opportunity for them. They have their crowd behind them and win some of those ball games. Even if they're like 4-1 at that point, Donna, I think that's a success. 4-1 with the first 5 games, I think, because they're playing like LSU, which is talented. But Auburn has some success playing LSU at home. And then, of course, Penn State's coming from the Big Ten. But I think Auburn's got a good shot to be 4-1. I really do. And if they're 5-0, that'll be great. But I think they got a shot to be 4-1.
So too, plus this new coach has something to prove. He didn't back down. And that made me feel much better about him.
Yeah, I think he stood up to him and said, look, I have this contract. Okay, I have some leverage myself. You may think you have some leverage, but I don't think you want to pay me $17, $18 million. You just got through paying about 20, 21, whatever it was because Malzahn. So, and then he changes coordinators. And Donna, people go through change all the time in business. You hired somebody and they did some good things, but overall you need to do much better. So he made some changes. They had, I think it was 18, 19 people transfer. But Donna, Alabama had 18, 19 people transfer as well. So that's nothing new. All these colleges, I think there was something like 2,600 transfers, Donna, in college football.
Record number, isn't it?
Oh yeah, record number at the FBS level. And I think probably could be more the next year or two. We'll see what happens if it subsides. But that might be a trend. It might be, even out at 25 to 3,000 per year, because I just think people in this day and age, now, why should I sit on the bench? Maybe this coach, he plays favoritism. Maybe he told me that I'm not going to get a chance. So why should I stay? Mm-hmm. If I can maybe graduate quicker, maybe in 3 years, move on and have 2 or 3 years left to play, I'm going to make a move. Let's look Oklahoma. They had a couple, 2, 3 quarterbacks transfer.
Maybe less than a minute. Okay. What do you want to say before you go?
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of them won the Heisman Trophy after they transferred down. So this idea that coaches always say you must stick it out thick or thin, that they don't stick it out thick or thin if there's a better opportunity. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Now, if you keep quitting all the time and not making any progress, that's something else. But everybody should have that option at least once, which is the rule now, to transfer and do their very best and play for a coach that wants them. You want to, Donna, in life, you want to be where people.
We got to go.